Hello, Coach Holmes here, and today we're going to be talking about counting outcomes and be able to find the number of outcomes given a situation. Well, first off, we got to be able to know what counting outcome is. Counting outcomes is to solve problems by determining the number of outcomes. So what do I mean by that? It's basically determine if I have like two events going on, how many outcomes could I possibly have? So we're basically trying to figure out the number of outcomes it takes to get a certain situation. So for example, let's say we want to spin a spinner and then flip a coin. Well, first off, what I want to be able to do is be able to make a tree diagram. And this is what it will look like. So for example, let's say if I spin at A, there's two possible outcomes after A. Well, better yet, let me start over. There's three possible outcomes. There's A, B, and C. Okay? The spinner could land on either A, B, or C. Either one. Now, the possible outcomes after the spinner is basically two, because I can either get a heads or a tail. So there's two possible outcomes so far, and that's given if A was the first thing we spun. What if we spun B? Well, again, it could be either it could be heads or tails. And then C could be heads or tails. So it all depends on what we actually get. So now, again, three possible outcomes, two possible outcomes for each of those three. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm just counting my outcomes. So I have 6 possible outcomes for the spinner with 3 space after and then flipping a coin. So there's 6 possible outcomes. Now, what if we actually toss a quarter and then toss a dime? So what we could do, we can draw 25. I'll put a dollar. 25 cents and 10 cents, and we can actually spin it or flip it. So if we flip a quarter, it can either be heads or tails. Now, if we get a heads, if we flip a dime, it could either be heads or tails. And if we flip a quarter and get tails, and then we flip a dime, again, either heads or tails. And that's all the possible outcomes I have left. So I want to count them up. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I have 4 possible outcomes. So there's only 4 different possibilities that it could be. All right. And then lastly, let's say we do sandwiches. So because there's different kinds of bread, there's different kinds of meat, and we want to know, well, how many possibilities could we have here? How many could we have? So I want to figure out how many possibilities we can do. So first off, I have 2 types of bread. I have white bread and rye bread. So white and rye. Now, I can either do turkey, ham, bologna, or salami. So I can do each of those 4 right off the bat for white. Turkey, ham, bologna, salami. So I can do either of those 4. Now for rye, and I'm going to move this down just a little bit, just so that I have enough space. So for rye, I can do turkey, ham, bologna, or salami. I don't have any more bread, so therefore I can't use any more meat. So that's all the possible outcomes that I have. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I have 8 different possible outcomes here. 8 different possibilities. And that will give me the outcome that I'm looking for. I have 8 different possibilities. So when it comes to counting outcomes, we want to be able to use a tree diagram to kind of give us a picture of how many outcomes it could be. And we can actually dig a little bit deeper by actually determining, or dig a little bit further by actually saying, well, if we have 3 outcomes and each of them has 2, we know that's going to be 6 in total. So another way of actually working this out is by actually multiplying one possibility to another possibility. So for example, if I toss a quarter, there's 2 different possible outcomes for a quarter. Heads or tails. Same thing for a dime. Heads or tails. Multiply those 2 out, I get 4. So then if I actually get the bread, I have 2 bread, 4 meat. So it could be 4 of each, or not 4 of each. But I can have 4 different, I can have one of the 4 in each of those bread. 2 times 4 gives me 8. So that's just one way, so that's another way of determining outcomes, but we're only able to get that through the tree diagram here. So it's very important to know how we can determine the number of outcomes. Thank you and have a good day.